Good morning, Wellspring. Everyone is muted out there in Zoomland. Good morning, Zoomland. My name is Judy Bethman, and I'm part of your Sunday, September 25th service team. We have a few announcements. As always, Early Bird meets Sunday mornings at 9:30 via Zoom. The link is in the weekly email and on the website. Upcoming speakers. In October, we have Randy Granger on October 2nd, Peggy Shin, October 9th, October 16th and 21st, our beloved Dr. Edward will speak, and then on October 30th, the Day of the Dead. And Vicky's in charge of that, and so who knows what's coming up. Our Thursday evening video series will continue this Thursday, September 29th at 7 p.m. with the biofield tuning, followed by heart math topics. Our October social event will be Sunday, October 23rd at 2:30 p.m. Healing Bowl meditation at True Art of the Earth, which is on Calle di San Albino in Mesilla. There is a sign-up sheet in the social hall, or you can talk to Rebecca Rose, and we are limited to 25 participants, and I think we've got about half done, about 12. And afterwards, for those who wish, we will be having dinner at La Posta. The New Thought Ladies Luncheon Potluck will be Thursday, October 27th at CSL, starting at 11:30. And lastly, our prayer team remains ready to serve and support you. You may submit a request via our webpage. Our prayer team meets virtually on Tuesday afternoons at 4:15 to pray with you. You may consider sitting in your quiet space during that time. We know that we are one in spirit, and the energy of prayer knows no limits. All right, let's everybody take a deep breath and breathe out. As we breathe in and out, we invite Spirit to be a part of this worship service. Spirit is ever present, but I think it likes to get invited occasionally. We know this community and all other communities of faith believe in the unified uniqueness that Spirit offers. We know that we are not separated from this Spirit. We are human and divine creatures and manifesting love at every breath. We know that this is who we are and what we believe, and so it is. All right, we have special music. Oh, no, wait a second. Song of Joy. Okay. Peace in our lifetime. right, now let's do our vision, our mission, and our affirmation. Our vision: to elevate spiritual consciousness in our world. Our mission: to support individual spiritual quests through celebration, study, counsel, loving fellowship, and service. Our affirmation: as we shift into fall, I welcome the changing of the seasons in nature, in my life, and in our community. I appreciate the bounty of this beautiful time together and honor what meets be released as well. I know all change is divinely guided and blessed, and so it is. Now we can have our special music, where we welcome Danica back.
All right, so the chorus on this is pretty basic, so if you feel like joining along, feel free to jump in. When the walls come tumbling down, I choose joy, I choose joy. When the world stops spinning around, I choose joy, I choose joy. When my heart is hard to move, when my music's lost its groove, when I have too much to prove, I choose joy, I choose joy. When hate is all I see, I choose joy, I choose joy. When fear won't let me be, I choose joy, I choose joy. When betrayal and lies hide the light from my eyes, I look up to the skies and I choose joy, I choose joy. Joy, 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 I choose joy. Joy, 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 I choose joy. In this moment right here, I choose joy, I choose joy. For the ones that I hold dear, I choose joy, I choose joy. To be who I must be, for the light to shine in me, for everybody to be free. I choose joy, I choose joy. Joy, 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 I choose joy. Joy, 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 I choose joy. In this moment right here, I choose joy, I choose joy. For the ones that I hold dear, I choose joy, I choose joy. To be who I must be, for the light to shine on me, for everybody to be free. I choose joy, I choose joy, for everybody to be free. When I choose joy, I choose joy.
Thank you, Danica. All right, today's reading is from the Basic Ideas of Science of Mind, and it's on page 47. Inferiority is no part of God's man or woman. Okay. Okay. You may never have admitted that you were inferior to others, but there's probably have been times when you felt timid, shy, inadequate, or fearful about attempting something. These are evidences of a thought pattern deep within you which silently suggested that you were inferior. And you accepted that suggestion even if you didn't put it into words. Let's give this matter a little more attention. We are trying to follow the old Greek adage, man, know thyself. Truly, to know yourself is to realize deeply, sincerely, and constantly that you are made in the image and likeness of God. Therefore, all godlike qualities are inherent in you. How then could you possibly be inferior to anyone? It would be impossible. You are not only have you, but you are. I'll read that again. You not only have, but you are life, love, wisdom, peace, power, beauty, and joy. If any previous ideas have made you feel otherwise, know that whatever they are now being cleansed away. And from now on, you are asserting your dominion over any negative thinking that would seem to keep you from your greater good. Reason it out and come to know that there is absolutely nothing that can deny God in you. Your conscious mind, however, must back itself up by the complete cooperation of your every thought, the continual implanting of affirmative ideas of good. This is how you are putting the law to work in the right way every day and every night. And so it is. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our beloved Dr. Edward.
Thank you, Judy. And Danica, thank you for the music. Today's topic is choose your magnificence. You can choose joy. You can choose any and all of those God qualities. But I think about it as magnificence as well. And I keep coming back to that. I guess it's for me, probably, as much as anything. I mean, imagine if somebody told you something very wonderful about yourself. It's kind of like, oh, I like your shirt. You know, the old, this whole thing, I got it at the thrift store, you know, or whatever. We always tend to choose some sort of inferiority rather than acknowledging that joy, that love, that peace, that magnificence that we truly are. As we look out of those of you here and those of you on Zoom, every one of you is a divine being sitting in that physical body. And that divine being, as the reading said, is of God and is magnificent. So the last couple of weeks I've been talking about the basic ideas. And this week was out of chapter 5. I started that as a kind of a leaping off point. And that topic of chapter 5 is called We Determine Our Own Welfare. And Judy's reading was from that as well. And in the previous week, I mentioned that, and these are Ernest Holmes's words, as self-conscious beings, we have the power of choice. How we choose to use the choice is determined by our desire and motivation. How motivated are we to address something is dependent on what is going on in our life. A friend of mine used to say, where you stand depends on where you sit. when usually we were talking about some topic of agreement or disagreement, of course. But let's take, for example, perhaps we have a problem budgeting our finances. Now, if we had $1 billion in the bank still, we might be less motivated to correct the problem with our budgeting than if we were down to our last $2. Suddenly, our failings are looking us straight in the face, so to speak. And similarly with our health. Generally speaking, it's a tendency when we're young, we're not too concerned about healthy living. You know, as a teenager, you know you're going to live forever and that nothing is going to kill you, right? That's why, well, anyway, I won't go there. But when we're older and maybe having health problems, suddenly we take more seriously the idea of healthy living. Of course, exercise is one of those. A few years ago, I would drive a particular way every day to work. And it was probably 5 years ago, I saw this woman who was walking on the walking path. And then 4 years ago, I saw this woman walking on the walking path. And 3 years ago, I saw this same woman walking on the walking path. She apparently walked about the same time I was heading to work. And I actually marveled at that. This was not something that she decided to do for this month. Maybe she decided she'd only do it for a month, but then, gee, that wasn't so hard. Let's do it for another month. And here it was, probably as many as 4 years later, and she's still walking. I have to tip my hat to that kind of dedication. And I don't know what motivated her to do that, right? But obviously she was motivated enough that she continued to do it. Now, similarly, kind of in the negative perspective, we talk about addictions. And it's usually not until we hit rock bottom that the impetus to make any changes, well, it's just not that great. And perhaps you know a person who has some less than endearing qualities, we'll just call them. However, they have no interest in changing because when anybody mentions it to them, they say, well, that's just the way I am. Right? We don't know anybody like that here. So they'll never change until the incentives are such that they deem it in their best interest to change. I mean, we're all that way. We kind of work on that incentive plan. I have a book on my side table that I'm reading slowly. It's by Carolyn Myss, M-Y-S-S. The name of the book is Why People Don't Heal and How They Can. And one of the points she makes in this Why People Don't Heal is that, my words summarizing, is that our identity is so tied up in our victim story that we're afraid to change. You know, who would we be if we weren't without, you name the condition? When you're introduced into a conversation, what would you say if you didn't say, well, you throw your favorite condition in there. All right. The point being is that we have the power of choice. However, we may not choose to exercise that power for one or many different reasons. And how do we finally decide to make different choices and stick with them? I guess that's kind of the age-old question. Well, we have to want more. We have to want the change more than not change. That's what it amounts to. And we have to have the faith and know that, among other things, we have the tools that we can use to help us make that change. The other night, we were watching one of our favorite TV shows. It's a doctor show, but at the end of last season, one of the doctors had broken up with the love of his life. And so this first episode of the new season, through the eyes of the camera, we would see that whenever he thought of his ex, he thought of these wonderful situations. And so the video would show these very romantic situations that they found themselves in. And that was her, these romantic situations. It just A, B, one B followed A. And folks were suggesting that maybe he needed to move on. And he says, I can't move on. Whenever I think of her, all I remember is these wonderful things that we had. And the psychologist in this story said, perhaps you're remembering the wrong memories. And I thought, wow, that's kind of new thoughtish, right? So then as the episode went on, he started thinking, when he thought of her, he would think back to the time she said, well, I'm just not sure this is going to work out. Or, another time she might have said, well, I just really don't see us together forever. And those kinds of things. And suddenly it broke the A equals B pattern until he could realize that the signs had always been there, so to speak. So I'd say let's apply this to our own situations. And I realize that most of us are mature individuals, but that doesn't preclude us from still having some hang-ups that are left to deal with. And a favorite one of many people is to tell about their bad experiences from childhood or maybe a little later. Something horrible happened. So we can dwell on that. It's our choice. Or we can choose to dwell on some other experiences that may have more of enabling value, if we call it that. Or maybe there was a situation that caused a break in the family or what have you. Well, we could choose unity over separation, and that would give us a different perspective on things. So what we label as bad experiences are just those that caused us to feel less than in some way or another. This inferiority that you were reading about, Judy. And an example, I just heard this the other night, and I remembered it because it resonated with one of mine. And that was, well, I'll get to that. But usually, let's think of our school situation, and usually we are embarrassed in some way, and we considered that a bad situation. We maybe felt less smart or less good looking or less bountiful or less abundant. Maybe we had homemade clothes. Maybe we didn't have the latest these days tennis shoes that are there. But we also know, as a sidebar, that all experiences are good experiences. All experiences are used by Spirit for our growth. So here's the one I was reminded of just the other day, and that was the experience of singing in class. And, the admonition or suggestion by the teacher is just move your mouth and don't sing because you couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. That old thing. I don't know if I had exactly that statement, but, I had that experience. I grew up knowing that I could not sing. And it wasn't until many years later that I asked Nancy, I said, let's see if I can truly not sing. And so we embarked on some lessons. And eventually I discovered that I could match pitch and sing on key. And I vividly remember the time that, I'll put it this way, back into it. I was singing, and suddenly I quit singing. And she's still playing along, and she's like, what's the matter? It's almost like, what's the matter? Don't you know the words type of thing. Well, the reason I quit singing is that tears were rolling down my face. I couldn't believe I was actually making a sound with my voice that matched the piano. Now, those of you who are natural-born singers probably have not had that experience, but man, it was amazing to me. It was this lifelong belief that I could not sing was dissolved in that moment. So I think many of us have stored within ourselves examples of inadequacy. And I suspect if we were to sit down and try to write it out, we might fill at least one page of a legal pad of all of our considered inadequacies. I don't know. Well, we actually have all the information we need to realize our godness. By that I mean, now that you've made this list, pick any one of those from the list and think back to when it started. And make a choice to remember it differently. Perhaps see it from another person's perspective at that time, but choose to see it differently. Because we know we can reprogram those memories. And why do we know that? We remember that experiment with the basketball players that were shooting free throws, and it was like for 15 minutes a day for a month. One group actually practiced shooting the baskets, and the other group just sat there and visualized shooting the baskets and making the baskets. At the end of the month, they were basically equal at their ability to shoot free throws. So if you have something from your list that made you feel, the list of things that make you feel inadequate, go back and reframe it in a different way so that you can release that inadequacy. Somehow find a way to make those memories into memories of love. And, you know, a lot of times these do involve other people. Someone else made me feel this way, or someone else embarrassed me, or whatever it was. Well, in actuality, all participants in that event were acting out of love. We just couldn't see it at the time. And if you find this hard to believe, I suggest you read the book that we've been reading in Early Birds called Your Soul's Plan. And you will see that no matter what the situation, that behind that all are some loving spirits that are doing nothing more than learning to love more clearly. Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of heaven." And Ernest Holmes says, if a man is seeking God, and if he happens to have the ability to think straight through, he will arrive at the inevitable conclusion that the discovery of God will have to come through the discovery of himself or herself. This calls for an absolute unity between God and man, not a unity someday to be attained, but one that exists now, that existed before he found it out, and would have existed just the same if man had never made the discovery. And again, that's man, woman, human. You know, he says infinite potential is waiting for us to accept it. You know, we are spiritual broadcasting stations. We're also spiritual receiving stations. And as we know, radio waves are all around us, and all we have to do is tune our receiver to hear the station. You know, we do it without even thinking in our cars, our radios. And in a sense, our receiver is a resonant receiver, and it can only receive what is in resonance to it. So if our mind is focused on anger and resentment, that's what we will receive. If our mind is focused on love and harmony, we will receive that. And who's in charge of that receiver again? I am. You are. When we take charge of what happens on the inside, we regain our power. The exciting part of this is that the parts of our life which don't work right now can be changed simply by doing work on ourselves. No one else has to change in order for us to feel good. Now, when we're in the presence of someone with a lower vibration, and this is a statement, not a judgment, we have the choice to lower our vibration to sync with them, or we can hold our vibration high to allow or help them to raise theirs. So I acknowledge and affirm that Each one of you are here today because you've been called to greatness. You are here to raise the collective consciousness of the planet. Please believe that. Accept your magnificence. You are so much greater than you imagine. Little old me or you in little old Las Cruces in the state of New Mexico, which is last in almost every category, right? You are magnificent. Still magnificent. The other day, Bob Greer and I had lunch. He's president of CSL board. We do this every once in a while, and we were just marveling that on any Sunday, there are 4 New Thought messages or services being held in Las Cruces. And you think about the size of Las Cruces, and you think about the size of Albuquerque, for example. There's 3 New Thought churches in Albuquerque from CSL perspective, and there's 2 or maybe 3 Unity churches there. And we have 4 Sunday messages. That's pretty magnificent. I want to read a couple of paragraphs from Eric Butterworth's book, Celebrate Yourself. Walt Whitman stated, "I celebrate myself. This was a conscious commitment to let the universe celebrate itself through him. It is the celebration consciousness, not looking forward to things, but looking forward from an inward flame of life. It is singing itself into your soul, saying, 'You are whole, and you are being healed and renewed in a constant rhapsody of life.' Celebrate yourself. Say yes to life, to health, to renewal. Sing your song of wholeness. Begin your day every day in a celebration consciousness. Within you is the unborn possibility of limitless life, and yours is the joyous privilege of giving birth to it. Let the child of your great potential be born. Happy birthday. The universe is celebrating you. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate your magnificence." And so it is. Oh, so let's take this to prayer. Now, if you recall, about a month ago, we talked about the heart-mind connection. Do any of you remember the 3 steps for that? Well, one of those is to touch our heart. Draw a focus to our heart. We normally spend our time in our mind, so we just turn our attention to our heart, and we relax. We take a few breaths, relaxing breaths. Just feel the heart. Feel the heart. And then turn to thoughts and feelings of gratitude. That can be anything from an experience of a beautiful place in nature, beautiful child holding in your arms, a beautiful feeling of the bounty and the nature, the love of God. So from this point of gratitude, we know that God is all there is. Spirit is in, through, and around each and every one of us. We are a piece and a part of God, of Spirit. We have access to all those aspects of God. Joy and peace and love, and bounty, health, wisdom. And from this point of our mind tuned to God, we take a moment to think of those of our family and friends, our congregation, our community, who may be struggling with something, and it really doesn't matter what it is, because we know that the cure, so to speak, for that is knowing who they are, knowing that magnificent being that they are. So we turn our mind away from the challenge. We turn it to the love and the peace that they are. We know that anything less than that is diminishing in their experience. So we give thanks for that knowledge, that understanding. We give thanks for this philosophy that we are a part of. We give thanks for how this unfolds in our lives. And we know that as we have spoken our word, put this intention into the law, into the mind, that it is already being operated on. We turn the crank on that computer program, and it is being done. It is done. And so it is. So now I believe we have Danica again. Let's make sure I didn't get yours.
Thank you, Dr. Edward. And so your limiting beliefs, that's actually something that I've been working on myself. And as a part of a family of artists, my grandma Flo Doherty being the matriarch of that family, I always told myself I can't draw, I can't do visual arts, but I can sing. But I've been working on changing that belief about not being able to draw, and I've been following instructions and actually drawing things. So that, that's something that we all can benefit from, is just changing those beliefs a little. Rise up to your elation, rise up to your love, rise up in celebration, rise up to your joy, rise up to your elation, rise up to your love, rise up in celebration, rise up to your joy, feeling heart's desire, rise up to your love, soaring ever higher, rise up to your joy, glowing with the change, rise up to your love, dancing in the rain, rise up to your joy, rise up to your elation, rise up to your love, rise up in celebration, rise up to your joy, rise up to your elation, rise up to your love, rise up in celebration, rise up to your joy, digging in so deep, rise up to your love, waking from your sleep, rise up to your joy, feeling your release, rise up to your love, coming home to peace, rise up to your joy, rise up to your elation, rise up to your love. celebration. Rise up to your joy. Rise up to your relation. Rise up to your love. Rise up in celebration. Rise up to your joy. Rise up in celebration. Rise up to your joy.
There it is. It was hiding on me. Thank you, Danica. Let's see. Okay. As we acknowledge and receive our virtual and in-person gifts, we give great thanks for the offerings already given and those we will be receiving, because we know that giving and receiving are both part of the one flow. We affirm that we are also part of that flow. We bless these gifts and know they are multiplied throughout our community. And we thank you for joining us today. There are a number of folks who have contributed to the production of this service, and we are grateful for their service. And we thank you for joining us today in Zoom land and here in the sanctuary. And lastly, stay around in the Zoom meeting after service to visit or join us in the social hall. I think she had a little hot coffee there, right? All right, please stand if you are able and read with me the benediction followed by our congregational song. Spirit in the midst of us is mighty. Joy, peace, and eternal life are our true nature and flow through us into the world. And so it is.